Hey guys, welcome to this masterclass with the one and only Rabea. For those who don't know, I'm Sam Bell, the head of guitar here at WaterBear, and it's a total pleasure to have Rabea on board with us here at WaterBear. And I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with his amazing output, whether it's his musical projects, Dorje and Toska, and his killer gear demos, and his educational stuff. Is just a fantastic sort of example to us musicians in 2020, I think. Rabea has kindly agreed to play some tracks for us from his home studio, and we're going to talk about having a career in music, writing tunes, and guitar playing. At the end of this session, there is a chance to ask Rabea a question yourself via Zoom, or alternatively, you can type your questions during the session into the chat. And if it's relevant to the topic, or if it's super interesting as well, we can throw it in, or we can put it in at the end. But it should be really fun. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are too. So thank you for being here, Rabea. I'm going to hand it over to you. You're going to bring us in with a track, apparently. So
I am.
Looking forward to it.
I'm going to try. Okay. I have to turn my mic down so that you don't hear all this. So I'm just going to do that now and then play. There we go. All right, here we go. Okay.
That was killer. That was awesome. That's the thing. It's the writing, it's the tone, and the mix of lead and rhythm playing as well, and just the melodic thing. So I'm sure there's going to be lots and lots of questions. There's already loads of questions coming in actually, based upon that. So awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Rabea. It's a pleasure to sit down with you, even though it's over Zoom.
Yeah.
It's good to see you. How have you been?
I'm all right, man. Yeah, it's you know, like we've been saying, it's weird, isn't it? Like being stuck at home like all the time, but ultimately we got to crack on. And yeah, I really appreciate being asked to do this, and it's kind of cool, like doing it from home. But it's a weird experience at the same time because I'm very comfortable being sat at in my own home, but at the same time, it's like mixing two worlds. So, but it's cool, and I appreciate everyone tuning in and saying hello.
Awesome. So I think there's going to be a lot actually of discussion about creativity, and that now we have time to be at home, not much live music really happening at the moment. Obviously, hopefully, sooner enough there will be plenty of opportunities, I'm sure. Writing and rehearsing and all those kind of things are things we can do in this lockdown. But I want to start maybe from a beginning, just to kind of an outline of where it started for you. This musical journey for you, from the early stages to really what I want to get to is when did you know that you were doing this quote unquote professionally? When did you realize this was a thing? And what was that moment?
Well, a brief history would, I guess, be that I started on drums first, and then, you know, when I hit like 12, 13, got well into skateboarding and really badly injured my knee, so I couldn't drum. Tore my ACL and then had to have some surgery, and yeah, basically had to have my leg in like a brace, so I couldn't bend it for a while. And my dad had his Strat and stuff, so just started messing around on that, trying to, you know, apply. I guess the cool thing was having rhythm or some sort of groove kind of straight off the bat was lucky, because I played drums and I obviously at the time had no idea that was a benefit. But I think that was a very helpful thing to just go, oh, you know what, I'm getting the hang of this quite quick. You know, it was that kind of thing, strumming away, playing some chords. But then in terms of like fast forwarding, you know, to the point where I was like, this is actually like a career that I'm sustaining my life off, would be, I mean, probably in the last sort of 4 or 5 years. Like, I've been in Brighton since 2013, and I lived with Rob for like the first maybe year, and then me and Hannah decided we would move in together. So we you know, obviously at that point, I forgot to mention Rob wasn't charging me rent. He was sorting me out because I finished ACM and then moved in with him. You know, came in rent free to be like, I'll help you out, bro, and you find a job, you know, get yourself some work and then move out, which is just exactly what happened. So I didn't want to be sponging off Rob for like, you know, however many years. Like he you know, he wanted to settle down with Nat as well. So yeah, had to happen. And I think after the first 6 months of living in our house, me and Hannah was like, oh yeah, I guess I'm doing this professionally, because if I'm living off it, then that's what that means, isn't it?
Yeah. So was it ever a goal in mind? Was it? It sounds like it was a natural occurrence because of the quality of what you're doing, where you've been, and the music being the voice, so to speak, rather than looking for it specifically to make it a job.
Yeah, like sense. Yeah, the goal was definitely to be a musician, whatever that meant. I think, you know, obviously when I'm younger, I'm going, oh, I'm going to get in a band and then, you know, get signed and do all that, and like that was the dream. So I left school thinking that's where I wanted to be, and yeah, I think throughout college, after leaving school and going to music college, and then you know, still having that attitude there, and then moving in with the band after college rather than going to university. And then obviously that was our focus, you know, the four of us in that house together working full time. You know, we were just focused on rehearsing all the time and gigging all the time, and I think that ran its course where we weren't getting anywhere, or at least we weren't getting anywhere that we really thought we would be at the amount of effort we'd put in. And it may have been because we were up north, it may have been, there's many reasons, but it was when we came down south that's where everything sort of started to change a bit. So
nice. So you're saying that's actually my next kind of question area is, finding your niche, networking, meeting musicians and collaborating with the right people in the right areas. That seems to have been quite a poignant thing in your progression.
Yeah, absolutely. The main reason we came down south was to go to a place, ACM it happened to be, but go to a place where we knew there would be people that had a similar mindset to us, or at least, because we went down as a band, but also we went down as individual musicians, because we all discussed it before, like, we're going to have to get some session work if we can, if we want to play music, to support the band. And obviously when that band's your entire world, we were all a bit like, you can't play with anyone else, dude. What are you talking about? There's that kind of vibe going on. So we had many a conversation about the fact that we would have to find other means to earn a living through music, whether that was teaching or clinics or like session work, or just playing in functions and stuff. So we had the attitude that no matter what, we were going to make some sort of living from music. And that was the focus going into college. And one thing that I would say that I found really important is that from my experience at ACM, witnessing from friends around me, there were a good handful of people with that kind of going in, right, I'm going to make a career out of this, and then other people that started to think about that towards the end. And I feel like they did themselves a disservice to an extent, because now they're working, they didn't have the chance, they didn't have the free time. Like down period at uni is a couple of days. You're not in college 9 to 5 days a week like you are a full-time job, so you have this extra time where we were jamming, writing, meeting people, going to jam nights, just being around and about, and from the off. And I think that's the thing, we were able to leave education hitting the ground running a bit, compared to going, okay, we've finished that now what do we do? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, so whilst you were there, you had the time. Especially, I guess now, relatively 2020, a lot of people here at WaterBear, even with the lockdown situation, it's even more chance to kind of, it is a bit of there's a negative side, of course, but the positive thing is actually there's time to, university and the situation is that time to really get on your job. So you kind of knew, you could select almost where you wanted to go whilst you were there, even though, was it concrete, or was it just like you had a rough idea, point the boat in that direction?
Well, luckily for me, and it is very much a fluke, like a bit of a by coincidence meeting Rob, was that there was direction from that point, because Rob was so adamant that his approach or his processes was gonna work, that it was an infectious, like, you just do this and it will pay off. And I feel like what I mean by do this, it will pay off, is like make some YouTube videos, like start to, you can be in a band and do band, but sort of branch out as your own individual guitarist on the internet and see, and just see if it works for you, because it's worked for me. Like, I'm doing this and this is great, so you should try it. That's how he was talking to me about it. And I just took that super seriously. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, there's an example, it's working for him, so like, why not? Let me just make some videos and play some guitar and just sort of I guess be myself as much as possible on YouTube, and maybe it'll catch on. And that was in 2011, so it was a while ago, but just keep awesome. Chopping at the block.
Well, I think that says a lot about where it's coming from, because I think sometimes it can seem like people just occur for just YouTube, but for you it sounds like the music and the bands and live playing came first, and why not put it on, why not, if there's a free platform like YouTube or Instagram, why not put stuff up? And I was going to say, you've got your YouTube channel and you're known for appearing on Andertons and doing demonstrations for some really fantastic companies, but you use your music as a vehicle for that. It's about the music, then the gear demo. I seem to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to just the previous point I was going to say was, in terms of my attitude throughout all that time, I guess one way to look at it is that it from leaving school to like meeting Rob and all the rest of it had never changed from being like, I want to play guitar. I think that was ultimately it. It's just, as long as I can play guitar, I'm all good. Whether that's being on YouTube, playing in a band, being a session player, whatever it was that was going to make me earn a living, as long as I got to play guitar, that's all I cared about, because to be honest, that was what I was really good at. you know, like I thought, and having had that 4 years of working full time with the band up north, like Bradford and Bingley, debt collection, selling stair lifts. Oh my God, so many horrible jobs. Like Ben used to sell 3M sticky pads for the back, you know, stuff that goes on the bottom of pedals, you know, those little 3M sticky thingies. Like we did some proper naff jobs, and I think knowing that I never wanted to go back into that kind of work again was like a just take no prisoners approach. Just like, I will play guitar for a living, however that manifests itself. I just trust it'll happen if I keep my mind on the goal, you know, I suppose. But yeah, sorry, I got completely sidetracked. So to say, what were you saying just now? What was the last question?
Well, no, I was saying the underlying thing is the reason why you're doing this is because you want to play and you've experienced the other side of the job situation, and it's inspired and motivated you. But what I was really getting at was the result of what you're doing is because the music's there in the first place, because the playing is there, and ultimately that speaks a lot. And then it's about putting it out.
Yeah,
you know, if you put it out in the right way, it reaches the right people.
Yeah, I think that's like what we were talking about earlier and before when we were chatting last to do these videos for the course, was like, yeah, I suppose being in bands and touring and playing and live and writing music and being in the studio and the band thing, yeah, that is what sort of validates my career, if that makes sense to me. That's the most important thing to me. Like, if I can go out and play gigs, even if they're tiny, but it's like, I think for me, it shifted from the band's going to make me my living and bread and butter, or being in a band, or the music, the band thing, you know, the artistry or whatever you want to call it. That I took the pressure off that having to earn me a living, if that makes sense, because I realized, oh, you know what, I can maybe do this in a different way. And then, although some pressure is good when you're in a band to like have that grind and that fight and that graft, because it absolutely is, it's part of it. It wasn't life and death, it seemed. And I think that really helped my mindset, because it meant, hang on a minute, if I carry on with this, it facilitates ultimately the thing that I want to do most, which is play and write. So yeah, they go hand in hand. But yeah, I suppose my focus has always been, as long as I can play guitar and write tunes and play with the band and go on tour, and you know, that's the most important thing.
So I guess that keeps you sane as well when there are tricky moments.
It does, although we can't do it this year, so I am going insane.
Well, I think we all, especially with the climate at the moment, but if you know why you're doing this, if you remind yourself, it kind of brings you back to that starting point.
Absolutely. Also, by the way, to everyone that's like thinking that I'm just looking down this direction, like I'm not interested, it's not. It's where the laptop is. So this is obviously the camera, but the laptop's here, so it kind of looks like I'm not paying attention, but I am, I promise.
Okay. Jordan Hambling's just asked a question. He says, were there moments at the start of your career which you weren't certain you could play for a guitar where it felt like guitar wasn't an option, basically? How did you get through those times and keep your focus? And I guess that's kind of to do with the love of it, but also... Was there, anything you can add to that?
I think when I set out from leaving school to do it, I was too naive to know if it wasn't going to work out. I think I was just very much just like, you could have done this across my face and I'd just be walking towards playing guitar. That's honestly how I remember thinking about it. I don't think I ever questioned if it's not going to work. I don't think I ever even thought to myself, I'm not saying like walking around like super Mr. Confident, like I'm going to be, it wasn't none of that, but I don't think, if someone had stopped me and gone, but bro, like what if this doesn't work? I would have gone, what do you mean? What if it doesn't work? This is what I want to do, so I'm going to just try my best, And it would have taken, I'm probably one of those people that if it hadn't have worked, I would have been trying all the way through into my 50s, 60s, like, and someone would go, it's time that you stop now, but that's what I mean. I'd just been eye on the, like, tunnel vision is basically what I'm saying. Yeah. I never ever second guessed my choice to want to do guitar. So there's a strong message there, I think, of just, like you said, it's not a cocky kind of arrogance. It's just, it's your calling almost. Yeah.
has to happen one way or the other, whether it's, you know, a function band or playing the main stage at a big festival or whatever it is.
I honestly think I'd have been one of those guitarists that even if I was doing function stuff, like, and that was my 100% thing that I did, I'd still be like ripping it up on stage, moshing out, like just going for it. Like I think that's just the way I've been brought up, I guess. Seeing my dad, you know, in the bands and stuff, I guess I just always thought this is how I'm going to do life.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. I think that there's tons. By the way, thanks everyone for all these lovely questions. There's quite a lot coming in. I'll try and pick up on some of them because there's lots of different subjects.
Yeah.
The next area that I want to pick up on is, and there's a lot of questions here about inspiration, mixing genres.
Mm-hmm.
Do you listen to fusion and all these kind of things? And I really want to get into, you know, your creativity, your songwriting. You know, what is creativity to you, and how do you get inspired? And do you have a process you've discovered, or is it different every time for creating on the instrument?
It's like the hardest thing, isn't it? It's like articulating how like a creative process, but it's like, I mean, whenever, like, as far as the music's concerned, for things like Toska, for example, it's always felt like it came from a place of like, I might write a guitar part. For example, let me just demonstrate one real quick. I think it's like this. Yeah, so it goes like this. And it loops like that a bunch of times before it moves on to something else. And I think that in itself is like a good example of that creative process. Because for me, that little progression, that's really like, there's something a bit weird and whimsical about it. I don't know if that's the right word, but to land on. And something within that is me going, oh, that's really cool, and it starts to set a scene on like what the drums would probably do, and then it starts to set a scene about how the bass would interact with it, you know, like the I would hear like accents on the cymbals maybe while keeping something going straight, and then the bass would be playing the roots on like the octave up and then bring it down low for when it drops to the lower chord, and you start hearing all this like start flying around in my head, and then I'll be like, guys, let's just do that over and over again for like 5 minutes, just constantly. We'll be looping it, and then we'll stop so everyone's comfortable, and I'll go, right, let's do it again, but like pretend that we're going to play the next section, which we don't know what it is yet. So then I'll be listening to it like it's a song rather than me thinking, where's my fingers going? And because I'm listening to it like a song, I'm going, cool, and then allowing myself to imagine where it's going to go next, and like, what do I want to hear next after that bit? And then, yeah, that's basically the creative process. It's just come up with like an idea that just happens to be picked out of whatever, like that random chord progression. But for me, it was enough to go, it started to write out this tune. So the creative process for me kind of starts on guitar most of the time. For all the Toska stuff, at least, it would have just been like a Lumo started with the It was just that, and I'd just looped it for ages, and then it allowed me to start thinking about where the song goes next. And that's basically how it goes. I try to listen. I always say it's like listening to the CD. I'm trying to listen to the CD, is what I say to the guys.
So you're starting with that. It's sort of like a top-down process. You get the initial spark, and then it's trying to reach where's that going to end almost.
Yeah.
There's quite a few questions which are kind of related to, because I got two things from that. It's bouncing ideas off other people. Mm-hmm. But there's one, before we get on to that, because I want to come back to that. I think it's really important about collaborating in a rehearsal room or even online. Jordan asks, for songwriting mainly, do you use tools such as pedals to get inspiration to create a mood? And then someone also asked a similar question. Reese asked a question saying about the guitar parts sounding massive in Toska, even though it's like a single guitar. Obviously, that might be a result of the way you write.
It's the stereo rig.
Right. Okay. Stereo rig.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things that help with that side of it, but yeah, the stereo rig is a big one. I mean, it sounds huge. So that's just inherently in the fact there's 2 amps running. Something about 2 amps and 2 speaker cabs running. I don't know what it is, but it just sounds better. So that's part of the Toska sound, I think, where we talk about these big guitar sounds. I think it's down to the sheer girth of 2 amps running at the same time. I don't know how to. I just noticed it was a big difference when we plugged a stereo rig together when we first started writing the Toska stuff. I was like, yeah, this just works better because if you've got stereo delay and stuff and it's doing the panning thing, it's way more immersive,
So that sounds to me as well like that inspired. If the riffs are inspired that way as well, then it's just going to sound even better when everyone gets involved and starting. Someone also asked a question about how do you prevent yourself from creating a riff salad when songwriting the instrumental, but I guess that comes down to taking that one idea, expanding upon it. Would you say, or
so
have you got anything around that?
Yeah, definitely. Like I'll pull all those things together. Like it's worth saying that what you guys are hearing, by the way, is my stereo rig. It's both amps running through the pedal board and everything. So, but with cab sims rather than cabs. But yeah, with the riff salad thing, I'm cut from a cloth of repeat a good riff if it's a good riff, man. Like there's something about the modern progressive metal thing, and I don't know what it is, and I'm not saying that it's bad. It's different for my taste in writing a good riff because, all right, put it this way. So Periphery is a great example. Now, which of all of their riffs can you sing the most? I would bet most of you it'll be and because it repeats. It happens like they keep repeating that riff because it's a banger. And that's what I'm trying to say. It's like I'm from that world of like you get a fat riff, repeat it. Too many bands now, they'll go, that's a great riff, cool, next, that's a great riff, cool, next, that's a great riff, cool, next. And I just think that's why that happens. That's when we talk about riff salad, it's, dare I say that a Periphery album probably has 100 songs worth of riffs, maybe more. I mean, it's their style, and I love Periphery, really enjoy listening to their albums, like, wouldn't change them. But my point being is that you could write way more songs out of the songs they've written with the riffs they've put in their songs. That was a tongue twister.
I guess that also when you use less and get more out of it,
less is more.
Makes more. Yeah, it makes more. But there's room for expression as well with that. You can develop those ideas. That idea, because if it sounds good as well, you want to hear it more.
And a good riff has that beginning, middle, and end vibe. Like a good riff gives you that. It'll pull on the heart. It depends on the kind of riff you're trying to write. But like for me, a good riff has a bit of dead tony kind of sound in it. It's got a couple of chord progressions in that might pull on the heartstrings a bit, make you go, oh yeah, that feel, that's got something in there. And then it's more aggressive again. I always try and that's my approach, at least. But but always repeat it because you want that that miniature roller coaster of emotion that happens in one riff to happen again. So it's an addictive thing.
Nice.
Like Sick, they're a great example of prog, like the new kind of progressive metal thing, striking that balance where Sixth will repeat riffs. They write songs that have repetition, and I think they're really good for that. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
No, it's a very valid, and I think it's very important because it can often feel like to make a song have value, fill it with, especially in the prog tech world, fill it with stuff. But actually, that song you played at the start was a prime example that it told a story. It took you. There was a journey dynamically of what was going on, and I think quite a lot of people on this gallery view on Zoom were all gurning when all the heavy riffs came in. It was great. There's a good question. Where's it gone? Someone asked about how do you create and find such unusual inversions, and that little minor triad riff you were playing that inspired that particular song as you use as an example. You've got a lot of lovely. It's not just chugging on open strings. You've got lots of nice chords, and I know you use different tunings and things like that. Is there anything you could kind of share with us on that kind of subject?
Yeah, I guess this ties into the sound and the creating of the sound and stuff for what I'm doing. But like I said about the stereo rig and everything, like it's part of it. But also tying in the inversion, the chord stuff, is that, for a start, I play a lot in. If I'm playing original material or writing in that headspace, I'm usually in a drop tuning, just because I've talked about it before, but it gets rid of my reference points. Like if I'm in a standard tuning, I start to go minor 7, you know, like major 7s and 13s and, you know, all this stuff that, you know, that it's almost like the standard tuning thing locks me into a way of thinking like that. Whereas as soon as I drop it, even though it's just one string, it gives me that open sound that somehow changes my reference point. And I start to think in this creative headspace where I'm coming up with a chord shape. Now, obviously, someone will go, oh, well, I know what that chord is. I know what that shape is. That's cool. But for me, I'm going, well, I don't know what it is. I just know it sounds cool. And I think that's the difference. And so that's what a drop tuning really helps me for. So when I'm talking about, or when you know, when someone's asking me about these inversions or these kind of chord voicings, it really comes from a place of experimentation. Like I couldn't tell you for the life of me what that chord is, or it's a completely different vibe, and all I've done is changed one note. You know what I mean? And these little things, they're just using a drop tuning and then just putting my fingers in different places where it starts to sound good, makes sense, you know. And I think it's a combination of that mixed in with chord scales. Again, I'm really bad with theory, but my guess would be like, you know, if I'm going, sorry, let me find the right sound. Yeah, so if I'm going, that would be like a minor chord scale, yeah? So
yeah, D minor, yeah.
Yeah, so I start to think about, I guess somehow subconsciously, I use these chord inversions that I've made, or these chord shapes that I've made up, and they all apply to a chord scale with the whole major and minor thing. So I just start thinking, and I was hearing like a 5, 4, 7, you know, like different notes out of that chord scale to come up with my chord progressions. I think is a big part of it. And then it gets weird when I start to get rid of that reference point as well. That's why some songs end up having really odd sounds that I'm not even sure if they're theoretically correct in any way, but they just sound odd in a good way for me. So yeah, I think that about answered the question.
I think you've answered that perfectly, and I think really what that highlights is, you know, the importance of writing from your ears. You're finding melodies which are kind of intrinsic to you, but you're also using the geometry of the guitar almost to sort of springboard some of that inspiration as well with the drop tuning there. I was going to ask you a quick question about that. Now I've gone blank briefly. There is actually some stuff for the WaterBear students. Rabea has actually kindly made some awesome videos. It's called, if you're a student here at WaterBear, you've got Rabea's Guitar World as part of the Guitar Techniques course, and you've kindly given us some really quality, in-depth videos showing various chords and breaking things down for us. So I recommend I learned a lot from that, just picking it up. But the intuition side there is really important for creating music. I often tell students that music theory is the theory of music. Music isn't theory. So there's no right or wrong. It's kind of down to what you have in your heart, ultimately. Yeah,
absolutely. I totally agree with that. And the stuff that we made for the course, it was both really exciting and slightly scary, because the guys were like, Sam was very helpful in like gave me some header and ideas and just a little bit of start off points, because it was very much like, talk about whatever you want. And I was like, okay, because I'm not theoretically trained, I wanted to make sure that there was some, like, it made sense, I think, more than anything else, because I could be going, yeah, that sounds really like magical, you know, like moving between here and there, it gives you a little bit of tension, and you know, if that to somebody, that they'd be going, the hell is he talking about? I really don't understand that. So it was nice to get the, like, really helpful from Sam to help steer the kind of headers for the videos. And then, yeah, I just kind of went off on one in each of them. So I really hope they're helpful. At least they'll give you a bit of my perspective on certain things like that, I guess.
I think maybe you're a bit hard on yourself about the theory thing. I think you do know what you're doing. Obviously, it's blatant, and it's just the patterns. You go to, you're saying about the chord scales across the neck. You know a map of the area, and that's kind of the key, really. And then you let yourself go into that. Just to go on a on the creativity side, there's a good question coming in here about influences and how that kind of can be a springboard for you. Someone asked here, what's your wildest and most unexpected? What do you get inspiration from, which maybe some people might be quite, maybe find it unexpected, or...
My influences? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
like...
yeah, I mean, one of my favorite artists of all time and space. I don't know how odd that is, but is Michael Jackson. And I know that obviously, you know, it's a little bit of a, you know, odd thing nowadays, you know, to talk about MJ in that way. But yeah, huge fan of Michael Jackson. Like, love almost every record. So that might be unexpected. I don't know, but I guess I just listen to. I try and listen to loads of random stuff. Like, if it's outside of, you know, band-related bands. So we're talking guitar, bass, drums, vocal keys, maybe, you know, stuff like that. Whatever genre that might be, whether it's metal or indie or whatever. So we remove bands from the equation because, you know, I love all kinds of bands. But in terms of artists and stuff, I you know, I like some mainstream pop. Love classical stuff. Listen to it a lot on my own when I travel. That's a lot where the inspiration came from for Toska's last album, was classical. The Planets, Gustav Holst was a big inspiration. I think it's The Mystic. One of the tracks from that, I think it's Venus, The Mystic. It was a big, not, you know, just it's more the tone, I don't know how to describe it in theoretical terms, but just the atmosphere and the emotion and the way it sets you, like, feeling when you listen to that stuff, I find so powerful. And I was like, if I could harness like 1% of what this music's doing to me when I listen to it into something like Toska, you know, like heavy, like in the chord progressions maybe or whatever, that would be sick, you know, like. And so it was there's a huge driving inspiration there, was to apply my enjoyment for some of the movements in like classical that I hear, and put it into Toska. How well I did that, I've no idea, but that was the intention. But yeah, like influences wise, yeah, I don't know about oddball. I'm off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of some, because there will be some really weird ones. But
well, what we're trying to
Farmers
get
Market,
at really,
listen to Farmers Market.
Sorry, Rabea, I interrupted you there.
I said listen to Farmers Market. That's weird.
Okay, everyone go and listen to Farmers Market. Somebody asked a question though about, I think, mixing influences outside the genre you write in can be very helpful. And somebody asked, what do you think of modern music and the mix of trap elements and metal guitar like Polyphia? That's the question. But I guess really what we're getting at there is,
what do I think of Polyphia?
Opposite elements. Yeah,
okay. Absolutely. Like, Polyphia is a great example. That's taking something that is, and whether or not it was premeditated, I have no idea, but he was like, Tim Henson was like, this is something everyone loves. And I'm coming from a place where I'm assuming, into like heavy metal before he got into what he's into now. So I see that when I first heard Polyphia, I was like, he totally had this thing where he's like, I'm going to do something, I'm going to innovate. And I felt like that was something he did and made that decision before going into they didn't just stumble into that style, is what I'm saying. And I think it's because I like progressive music. But part of me is like, fair play, that's great move, like, it's cool songs, really enjoy, and the playing is unreal. There's so many good things about it. But for me personally, I feel a little bit like you're going with trends, and I think that's part of being into prog, that you have a bit of a, like, you know, there's maybe, I don't know, I just, yeah, it's a totally viable way to do things. And, like, you know, there's bands like Unprocessed that came from the gentier side of things, and he's obviously seen what Polyphia have done and gone, great idea, I'll join that too. And now they've gone down that route as well, because it's popular, and people that it's more accessible, people that are into heavier metal and gent and shred and all that stuff can actually get into it, whereas these bands can still be sort of respected in their field as well, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's a good way of going about it. I feel like it's more strategic than other ways, but at the same time, I think, you know, it works and it's good music. Not 100% my bag, but it's definitely great.
Awesome. So I guess that's also down to like the different production values. I see there's quite a few questions coming in about tone building and production and recording at home. And neural DSP is coming up a lot. I don't know if people are asking, are you using that today? Is that what you're running?
No, I'm running valve amps, 2 of them.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a slightly amp snore thing to say. No, like on the tone side of things, there's loads of different stuff to talk about. But my opinions or like my approach with some things, like I love the neural stuff. Like I use like the Grinding Gears 3 EP that's coming out mid-December. I think over half the tracks are all neural plugins. Well, in fact, all the bass is neural plugins. All the drums are GGD, and I think half the tracks were to do with neural in some way or another. So all the guitar on them is neural plugins. So I love them. I think they're fantastic. I think there is definitely an inherent disconnect when using software-based guitar stuff or hardware software modeling, whatever you want to call it. So like the new Quad Cortex or a Helix or using any of that gear. I think there is an inherent disconnect with, and it's probably just a placebo or subconscious or something. But that's why people like Mick and Dan from that pedal show aren't huge fans of it either. I don't think it's because it doesn't sound as good. I mean, they would argue that it doesn't. But my point being that there are certain elements of it that really, I was at NAMM and I remember when they were first shouting about the Nameless suite. So they'd hooked up the Meshuggah head with the Nameless suite and they were switching between the two coming out of the cab. And there was no way I could tell. There was just no way. So like on the heavy side of things, or like gainy amps or modern guitar tone, there are, it's as good. It's fantastic stuff. It's just, there's something about the direct touch response that I feel, and it's all down to the individual. When I'm plugged into an amp like that, I'm running 2 valve amps with my effects, and it's all like, it's pedals making the sounds, and it's valves heating up, giving me my tone. I'm just a huge fan of that. So, but in terms of tone building, yeah, I think I like to get, there's a few things I like to do, which is run less gain on the amp, have a higher output pickup, because, there's more compression from the guitar there, and although it's, on some tones it might be more difficult to get the dynamics you're after, something about running less gain means, the compression's got to come from one or the other, is what I'm saying. So a lot of gain is compression, ultimately. So I'd rather get that from my guitar so that there's a little less fizz, or like there's a bit more dynamic, what's the word I'm looking for? Harmonic content happens with less compression, right? But so I'll have less gain on the actual amp to achieve that, so that you can do the tones which are. That's because there's less gain on that, on that channel to get these kind of push clean sounds. Let me get the right channel. Sorry. But if I was to dig in, and I feel like you don't get the same dynamic range from if you were running the gain higher on the amp. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's more definition, it seems, as well, actually.
Yeah.
When you do dig in, you can get a bit more pick attack.
Yeah, so like for the heavy stuff, that tends to be what I would do. This is the silo, but it's like, I've always used bare knuckle. They've always been high output. So I run high output pickup in the bridge always. Less intense in the neck so that you get the chimey in between sounds. But yeah, run less gain on the amp, and that's how you get the thicker chord tones and stuff. You end up with a. You can hear my strings too much, taken away from the effect. But yeah, and then with stuff like Strat and things like that, I just run a tiny bit more. I might use a compressor, maybe. But yeah, things like delays and reverbs and stuff, I try and keep all the top end out so that you don't get that clashing of zingy kind of top end from a reverb. So it's a bit more dead. You know what I mean? So you get all the chime from the guitar, from the pickups, and it's not getting in the way. So it means that you can play like this, and it gives you a bed of something underneath. But then when you actually go to play lead, there's no zing getting in the way of all the notes you're trying to play. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the word like a bed or a foundation there is quite a nice word to use just to explain that, because you get all the detail, but you get it's like the note lasts even though it's finished. It's still got room to bloom.
Yeah.
There's another question here about what changes do you make from an extended. I'm trying to read the question. Sorry. What changes tonally do you make from an extended scale, baritone, or a standard guitar? If we're using drops, so basically, I think going between a standard tuning versus lower tunings.
What
do you
changes
change
do I
anything
make?
Tonally?
So I lost my pick. Between this, which is drop C, and that, which is drop A, nothing. I just plug it in and carry on. I mean, that being said, it's the same pickup, but I guess what you're getting at is like, if I'm running between baritone and standard scale, it depends on the tuning. So yeah, like I say, drop C, maybe, any higher than that, maybe drop C sharp. So like tuning down half a step. I probably wouldn't do anything to the sound. What I might do is, if I was in standard tuning, I might take down a little bit of brightness. I might boost a little bit of low end. Because thicker strings are inherently bassier and less defined. That's about it, to be honest, moving between a baritone and a standard tuned guitar, not standard scale. Yeah. I think because otherwise it would annoy me, like mid-set, if I was like jumping onto the baritone and suddenly had to quickly turn around and like change all this stuff, like it would just irritate me. So I haven't, maybe I'm just ignorant to it, but I haven't really noticed a huge tonal difference between the two.
That's totally cool. Totally, that's an interesting answer as well. Keeping a core tone to go with, it makes life, creativity, everything just straight to the point. You've got your sound,
and I get it from the amp. It's worth saying. Like I don't get. I was sorry to interrupt you, but I get it from the amp. So I don't. My high gain tone that you're hearing wherever it is always just the overdrive from the amp. I don't use pedals or any gate or any boost or anything. It's just the amp. I don't like gates. I find gates are really they're a hindrance. Yeah.
I guess that's coming down to pick attack and the playing dynamic, like you were saying, of the clean tone and that everything. It comes from the guitar itself. It's more expressive as a thing. I know quite a few, like John Brown from Monuments does a similar thing with his thing.
It's I think he's about that as well. But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're getting close to the end of the hour, and I know there's one more track to be played, but I want to open it up a bit more to people wanting to ask a question to Rabea over chat. If anyone wants to chip in and actually speak to Rabea one-to-one with a particular question, I don't know how we could, Jodie, I don't know how we can sort of what's the word?
So if anyone just wants to sort of unmute themselves and sort of say their name, and we'll just open it up a little bit more.
All right.
So who's going first?
Where's the tumbleweed?
Come on. Go on, Josh. Yes, Josh. Unmute yourself. Go for it.
Right, Josh. Hi.
Hello.
How much technicality do you put into your, like, if you're writing a part, how much of the technicality are you thinking of as opposed to like songwriting?
I picked up the wrong guitar for this question. I mean, we all know that Strat's all just about attitude. Don't need technique. No, with sorry, that is not the truth. When it comes to, I guess, like the Toska stuff, progressive metal or like heavier stuff or technical stuff, I've always made the joke that in Toska, Ben and Dave have a harder job than I do because I deliberately didn't want it to be super technical, like I said, because I like repeating riffs and stuff. I guess the most technical thing in any Toska tune would be that. What was it? Or whatever it is, like that hammery on kind of weird timey thing. That's about as technical as it gets, because I don't, to be honest, I don't think about technique when I'm writing. I think if I stumble into something that I'm like, I really want to be able to do that, then it means it's technical, I guess, if I'm struggling to do it. So what I'll do then is just focus on that one element, analyze where it's coming from, where the hindrance is coming from. And, you know, it might be on the picking hand, it might be that I'm ringing out some strings or muting some strings with my fingers somewhere, and I get really start to really pinpoint exactly what the nuances of that one bit that I'm struggling with, usually to find that it's just a matter of practicing it. You know, like sitting there and going, okay, yeah, I can get this now, like, go for it again, you know. Like there was a bit in I mean, I haven't played it for ages, but it was is it in like that run that I had to put in the middle of the riff was like, again, I apologize, it was a terrible rendition of it, I played it for a long time, sorry. Yeah, that was hard at the time, and I was like, that's really annoying me, so I had to sit there and go over what it was. And was it going into that run? Was it that I was tensing up because I knew it was coming? Was it, you know, what was it about it that was, you know, it sounds like I need to go back and do that process again after just hearing what I did. But the point being that that's about the only time I really take note of if it's technical or not is when I'm stumbling. So like that. I hope that was helpful.
I think that was a very good answer to that. You know, using your music as the basis for developing technique rather than putting technique things into the music for the sake of it.
Yeah.
The music calls for it. You're trying to express a certain vibe with that run rather than just, here's something I've practiced, check it out. Like
that silo track that I played at the start was the verse was all about the go on a different sound. Like the pattern is for the whole verse. You could break it down and look at it like, maybe I sat there and went, I'm going to use this technique and this one pattern for the whole verse. That's getting really technical on it, which was not the case. It just happened that going, I was hearing a drum groove over it. So I put the drum groove down and it just worked out that it had all the momentum it needed, and I could actually move the shape round. All this stuff, and it's the exact same technique, picking pattern, everything. But I think, you know, like you were saying, I was trying to figure out chord progressions to give it movement rather than, you know, focusing on the technique element of it. But you could look at it that way if you wanted to. Sorry, I rambled again.
No, it's a brilliant answer, I think. We're running towards the end now. I've just seen two quite interesting questions which are to do with that. And one was, you know, what do you do to keep practice fun and enjoyable whilst being productive? But I think I'm getting the impression that the music is giving you that quality of productive and fun.
Yeah, I don't. I don't sit. I definitely don't sit and practice. So what I mean by that is like get the click track on, or like go over my scales, or like go over my chords or modes or anything like. I just don't do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that if that's how you know that works for you. Great. I tend to just I tend to just get a loop going, and then just jamming over it. And if I want to practice, as in challenge myself, I play a more difficult loop. So I might look at some jazz progressions. I should do this more, but I look at some jazz progressions and I'll loop them and then practice playing over the changes. Because as far as I'm concerned, technique-wise, you know, I feel like I have enough of the techniques that I'd like to incorporate into my playing to not have to necessarily. You have to keep on top of them, but I don't want to be there practicing sweeps and all the stuff that I don't think I'd ever really put into my playing or writing. So I'd rather just be happy with the techniques that I have, which aren't exactly like it's a huge amount. It's just being comfortable with playing guitar, having a certain amount of freedom, and then really just be as musical as possible. So would be about the the practice side of it for me, just playing. So
awesome. Just playing, just go for what feels right, and let the music, go with the music inspiration.
I mean, it's worth saying that you can get a little bit, you know, if I'm just, like if I'm sitting playing, it's worth saying I'm not just sitting and riffing or just playing ambient stuff. Like, I will try and, if I'm in that mode of I'm going to play today, then it's almost never the progressive ambient stuff. That tends to be what I do when I want to just sit and enjoy playing. But if I'm there to go, I'm playing today, like, I'll scroll the internet for like all sorts of random bits of stuff that give me a bit of a challenge, or like just play, like I say, over those changes, or try and take a bit of an intense song that I really like. There's some snarky stuff, and see if I can play along to it for like 2 minutes, and usually fail miserably, but you know, it's worth a try.
Well, no, it's the curiosity of what you find interesting.
Yeah.
And going for that, and that's going to inspire you to find new things which otherwise you wouldn't find just playing, noodling almost.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. There's one, but we probably should start to wrap up. But one final question. Thank you so much for your time here.
I mean, keep it going if you want for a bit. You know, if people have got questions they want to ask and you feel like we haven't asked enough, it's fine to carry on going.
Amazing. That's very kind of you, Rabea. I'm sure a lot of people are going to really appreciate that. I'm trying to read these questions. They're all coming in.
Cue 1,000 questions.
Well, one question here, which is similar to one I was going to ask. The question I was going to ask was, you know, what would you consider important areas to focus on as a guitar player and a musician? But also along with that, the other question, I think by Reese Hurds asked this question: what are some of the qualities you would need? What are some of the qualities you would need to have a career like yours? Well, basically qualities as a person, as a musician, as a guitar player. What do you feel is important?
Yeah, like, I think trying to be a guitarist nowadays, it looks very different to how it did back in the day, at least from what I saw. But, you know, like, I think the quality's got to be there from the off. Like, out the gate, you've got to have a certain quality level. Like, if I look back at the old quality of stuff I did, it's like, the only reason it's not deleted off YouTube is because it's a nice memory more than anything else. Like, you know, there was a point to like saving up and getting a good camera and a good lights and stuff like that, so that when anybody comes and watches a video on my channel or sees an Instagram post, that there's just a certain quality, whether it's the sound or the picture, so that that's what you can manage expectations that way. I think that's just really important to have nowadays, because or you find a vibe that works and you stick with it. So like Aric Prota, who's a drummer, absolutely amazing drummer, and he's on Instagram, and he kind of coined his vibe, which was GoPro audio, black and white. So every time you see him drumming, it's got the wide angle GoPro vibes, and it's black and white, and it sounds compressed like in that GoPro way, and it's become his thing. So it's not necessarily about £1,000 camera and like all the fancy lighting. It's more just whatever the quality is and you're happy with, and it's got a thing, just stick to it, you know, and keep it that way for a while. Consistency is key, I've found, and you know, whether it's consistent content, whether you upload something every day or twice a week, and just stick at it. And the qualities that I suppose are important is to persevere, is to be stubborn, not let anyone tell you that it's not going to work out, to be comfortable on camera. Like, it's really weird. Like, I feel like I'm shooting a YouTube video even though we're doing this masterclass thing right now, because it's very much, I've trained I used to hate sitting in front of a camera and doing what I'm doing right now, but I feel like I'm talking to a bunch of people. I'm talking to my mate. This camera is like my friend, and I've trained my brain to think that way when I sit in front of a camera, so that I don't get awkward and that I can just hang out like if you were sat in the room with me. And I think that's an important quality. Or if you want to talk on camera, or you don't have to talk at all and just focus on the playing. Like, this, you know, whatever it is, if you find a niche that you're comfortable with and it means that you're not going to talk yourself down from doing it, do it, I think is what I'm saying. Does that make sense? Like, maybe Aric Prota hated talking on camera, so he was like, you know what, I'm just going to drum and I'm going to make it black and white because that's a bit different. And that way I'll keep making content and I'll keep uploading. And I think those are the qualities that if you got yeah, if that made sense, those are the qualities that I think are important to have as a modern day guitarist, because it's going to outside of teaching and session and function stuff, it's going to manifest itself in building your own brand on Instagram or YouTube, or like, you know, it's going to be about that some way. Someone's going to have to tune into your channel, your page, and be like, what's this person about? What can I get from them, and stick with it, you know? So.
No, I think that's the thing. Finding your niche, finding your, it's like the corporate word is brand, but it's true. You're building that recognition almost. You know, it's Rabea. Someone's left a really lovely compliment saying, you know, you're able to balance your music. You can share your expression, your music, and your demoing gear, and people find it enjoyable and inspiring. And that's because you've tapped into that sort of core thing that's your thing. It's not you trying to be like somebody else necessarily. It's not that you've decided to find. You're not trying to find a gimmick, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's just you. It's authenticity.
Yeah, and there was I feel like with that there was a certain level of confidence I needed to gain to feel like people were happy to see that, if that makes sense. Because there's so many times where I'm like, does anyone even care about this video that I'm putting out? Does actually anyone actually care? Like, and then you just go, somebody probably will. And that's not being egotistical. That's not blowing smoke, you know, up the backside or anything. I feel like maybe somebody will, and they'll get something out of it. And maybe it might not even be the gear demo. It might just be something I ended up playing that they went, you know what, I'm going to pick up the guitar and play. And I think that nowadays I've, again, had to convince myself that it's not arrogant to assume that someone may react that way from something I've made. So I think there's a certain level of self-belief you have to have in order to persevere, because it takes a long time. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's an interesting thing. Like if one person takes notice, to discount that would be arrogant.
Yeah.
But you have to. Everybody, you know, it takes the moment, takes the time. That's huge, and I guess that comes across in your personality and in your music. You're a nice guy. You know, that's kind of a really important thing here, is that you come across really well. You come across honest. At least on camera.
Yeah, no, I'm a complete arsehole when the camera turns off, promise you. No. As we say up in the north, love your vibe, mate. Love your vibe.
Fantastic.
Sorry, I'm going mental. I've been on my own for too long.
Yeah. That's good. But everyone's really enjoying this. Your time is really appreciated. There's a couple more questions. I mean, if we've got time.
Absolutely.
There's a good question here about, is there any sleeper unknown gear that you would absolutely recommend to a guitarist?
Is there any
recording, like, as in, I guess they mean like things that you, maybe some gear that you think people should have.
Oh, okay.
Not as like you should buy this to sound like me, but as in useful, and maybe, I think the word sleeper unknown. So maybe something that's not so popular that you think actually people should check out.
I think it just guitar gear, you mean, or music gear? Like, I think to be honest, nowadays, laptop or computer interface, and then you can actually do most things with a laptop and an interface, i.e. Neural DSP, GGD, you know, all these plugins and software instruments that you can use to create. I think that is something that in the modern day everyone needs, is an interface and a laptop. Because I could say, get a load box, it's great, you can crank your amp at home, it sounds wicked, but that's not really, I don't think that's anywhere near as valuable as having a reliable system that you can create from. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I'd do without my computer. Like, it's great having the amp and the pedal board and all that stuff, but if I can't record it and edit it and make it, you know, and edit, get it all going nicely presented with my computer, then it's... So, yeah, I think a nice computer and interface, or a computer that can run your music software and interface is an absolute must.
Well, it's definitely become inexpensive nowadays. You know, you can set yourself up quite cheaply, really, and get great results. There's a guy called David Maxim.
Yeah,
David Maxim McKeek with Destiny's Potato and all that. He did a video on free guitar plugins that you can get just to get started, and he did a demo mix with it. And it's about the knowledge and the playing. I think that's kind of what you do with it. Start simple. It's right in front of you.
For sure.
Definitely. Good advice there, definitely. It's right with the laptop, get your laptop going. There's a couple of questions here. Bear Phillips asks, how do you work towards finalising ideas and finishing a song? He finds it easy to start and get everywhere. I've got plenty of unfinished projects on Cubase. How do you get that from point A to point B?
Well, mindset is a big part of it, because for example, any of the Grinding Gears stuff, they could have ended up being full-length songs, but I stopped. I was like, that'll do, or I can't hear past this, and left it. And they're demos, that's what they are. So that, irrespective of them being released, they're still demos. They all are victims of that, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Some of them, maybe the track that I started, I finished. I went, you know what, I have to finish this track, the track I played to start with. But it's a conscious decision. It's a choice. It genuinely is. Because we'll be in the Toska rehearsal, when we were writing any of the stuff, it might have run into 7 or 8 minutes long, because it just felt good to carry on playing for that long. It just felt like the song had to carry on going and going and going. But yeah, there is a point where you go, we probably need to start rounding this off somehow. And maybe there are some subconscious formulaic concepts that I use musically to round off a song, maybe a reprise maybe of an earlier section. I find that inherently in progressive metal and heavier music, you could end on a high. So like example, the end of The Pot by Tool, it's all up there with all the screaming going on, like it's up there. So you can end, it's I think it's maybe having the it's almost like music writing vocabulary in your brain. So if I'm at this point in a song, it feels like we're in the we're sort of 2/3 of the way through. We've hit our breakdown or our mid-A, or we've taken it somewhere else. Somehow I have a little notebook in my brain that goes, right, this is how you can get out of this now. So it might be like, we'll reprise the intro of the song, if that's the right word, bring it back slightly differently. We might have a breakdown into a little connecty bit that ends in a final riff end of the song. So there are just these approaches to songwriting, I think, that just come up like that, because I totally know what you mean, where you've got so far in a song and you go, I just can't hear where this is supposed to go, and it feels cheap just to go middle 8 double chorus finish. You know what I mean? Like it feels cheap to do that, but honestly, it really isn't. It isn't cheap to do that. Sometimes you just feel like it's a cop out, but if the song gets finished and you come back to it 10 days later, and you listen through to that song that you felt you ended a bit cheaply, just listen through to it as a track and be like, actually no, sometimes you need that distance from a song to know.
Well, on that note, Rabea, and I'm sorry because it's been absolutely brilliant what you've shared with us today. And on that note of finishing a song, we need to
finish on a song.
Wrap this masterclass up, and please, I want to say thank you to everyone turning up tonight. Thank you, Rabea, for your time. You've been so generous.
That's all right. It's been fun.
I hope everyone's enjoyed it. If there's any other questions, I think you can fire them to Jodie privately, and maybe we can see if there's something else we can do with that. But I think we're going to finish up this masterclass here. Thank you so much, Rabea.
No worries.
Players out.
I'll do my best. I'm going to play a Toska song, the oldest Toska song, and we haven't gigged this entire year, so this is the second time I've played it this year. So if it goes wrong, I'm sorry. But thank you all for coming and hanging out. I can't see you. I wish I could be like sat in a room being like, nice one, but I'm sure you're all there, so thank you very much. Means a lot, genuinely. All right. It sounds like someone's microphone is on. Thank you. Where is it? Ah, there it is.